I remember going on a tour of a school that I was looking at for my daughter, and I kept this with me, and the teacher taking the tour said, we don't give the students the information. We teach the students how to find out the information. We had a really big recruitment drive for faculty. And because our faculty is so internationally diverse, and because our student body is as well, we have just over 200 students in the building now, and I think we average about 36 nations across those just over 200 students. I was saying this to a group of students this week. I was saying, like, what's special about a group, and whether that's a production team or a company or a group of students making their first project, is that coming together of those people in that time with that piece of script or devised work or whatever it may be only happens once.
Welcome to the Theatre Art Life podcast. Today we're talking with Jacqui George.
Jacqui has been working in stage and production management the last 25 years, with a major focus on conservatory training. She has taught at several conservatories and is a Master of Education and a Senior Fellow of the Higher Education Academy. In 2018, Jacqui became part of the senior leadership team at the Sharjah Performing Arts Academy to design and implement a conservatory performing and production art undergraduate training in the MENA region. Jacqui has worked with professional companies such as National Theatre Wales, National Youth Theatre of Great Britain, and Shared Experience. She has toured the UK extensively, produced rep seasons in the West End, and internationally worked in Shanghai, World Expo, Berliner Festspiele, and Paphos, City of Culture. Jacqui also enjoys producing work with her and her husband's company, We Made This. Jacqui was one half of Stand By Please, the stage management podcast with Antonia Collins, and she is project director of World Stage Design 2025. Oh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us all the way from the UAE. Let's get started with the question of where we usually start with our guests is, how did you particularly get into the arts, and what was your journey into management?
Well, I guess, like for a lot of people that I talk with, it was a bit of a happy accident. I grew up in South Wales in the UK, and my family, whilst really loved going to theatre, or there was always music playing in our house, we weren't I can't say my dad was an actor or my mum worked in theatre. But whatever I did, they always encouraged me to do it with 100% commitment. So I knew I used to go to dancing like a lot of young people from the age of 5. And then I did my A-levels, and one of them was in performing arts. And I knew I loved theatre, but I knew I didn't want to be on the stage. So I went and did my undergraduate degree in London at St Mary's, and I did classics and theatre studies. And whilst I was there, one of the final year students asked me to stage manage her final piece, her last project. And I didn't really know. I'd done one module in it with the fantastic tutor that we had at St Mary's, but I didn't really know it very sort of early in my stage management journey. So I thought, yeah, I'll do it. I'll give it a go. And from then it all began, really. I graduated and I thought, right, what am I going to do with this? It wasn't via a specific program, but I thought I'm just going to try and do some work, do some jobs. So I got my first freelance contracts as an ASM, and then that sort of just snowballed. But I always knew I loved the theatre. I always knew I love arts. I think until recently, I denied I was creative because I was the stage manager and I was the organizer, the realizer. But actually, I sort of admit it now and recognize that, I think, which is in all of us as stage managers somewhere in our practice. So that's how it all began.
And then you went off and did a lot of stage management and production management?
Yes, that's right. I stayed in London. I decided that if I was going to do it, that was the right place for me to be at that time. And I always think of the work I've done, that I am so fortunate and so lucky to work with incredible companies. And I worked for companies such as Shared Experience, where I did a lot of national touring. Worked for companies such as National Youth Theatre of Great Britain. And then at one point, I had a stage management contract with a drama school in North London called Mountview. And they produced a season of about 25 shows a year at the time. And they didn't have their own venue. Well, they did have a venue, but it quickly became not most practical to use because it had a tree growing in the upstage left wings. So that
Wow.
brought its own problems. So
I mean,
I did
that's
a
kind of cool,
freelance.
though.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Like, you'd look at the ground plan and you'd see this like big sort of circular blob in the upstage left corner. Uh, But everyone
That's
sort of loved
awesome.
the tree, and rumor was it was a registered tree, which is why the theatre was built around it. If you
Oh,
stood
that's
from
hilarious.
the outside in Crouch Hill, you'd look above the roof and you'd see this sort of beautifully spouting tree. So when it became a bit impractical to carry on using that theatre, they used venues all across London. And I really enjoyed it, actually, because it was an opportunity to do a job that I loved, but also work with people who were learning their craft and learning their trade, and to do it in as real, as simulated an environment as it could be, and work with professionals. And with that comes the good and the bad, and from the good and the bad comes all of the best learning. So that started my journey with working with young trainee stage managers, lighting technicians, sound technicians, engineers. And then from there, I also did some work for the National Youth Theatre of Great Britain. And that took me down a different path as well, because that was a beautiful sort of summer program where students from across the UK spent a residential few weeks over the summer learning the different disciplines, but also worked on shows with them then as a stage manager, and then as a production manager. We used to do a West End season. We used to play 2 shows in rep on top of a regular running show. So all the logistical challenges that come with that, and travelled with them as well. But again, seeing not only the stage managers and the lighting technicians and the sound and the costume, but also the young performers as well. And for me, there's always a really strong synergy between, and I think sometimes in certain places it gets lost, but the synergy between training and professional practice should be really closely tied together. I often talk to people and we say, which informs what? Is it the training informing how the industry functions, or vice versa? And which way should it be? Or who can we learn the best bits off? And from there, that's where my sort of career followed. I've had time of teaching full-time in conservatoire buildings in London, and then going back, doing that for a few years, then going back into the industry, because it's really important for me that my practice remains current. I think it's quite easy to be in a building and to talk about it a lot, but I think to do it is the best way to teach it. And also for the students that I teach and train, learning from them as well, and I can take that back into my own work. And then from there, stayed in London and moved back to Wales, back to be sort of closer with family, and carried on working there. And then I had an opportunity to take that work overseas and develop something, which is what I did then in 2018 when I moved to the UAE.
Ah, that's amazing. So we will talk about that, but I want to go back to your stepping into the education realm through those youth theatre and things like that. I want to ask you, seeing you do that, did that come naturally to you? And do you think, because not everybody can do the craft and also teach it, right? So did you feel like you had to go through a growth curve to be able to teach people, or does that come quite naturally to you?
No, I don't think it does come naturally. I think I'm still in that curve, Anna. And I see, but I see it a lot with people I work with and people I teach with. And I think certainly our industry and the training of our industry, you have a lot of educators who come direct from industry with a lot of experience. Traditionally, we're not academics. And I think then with that comes the insecurity and the doubts that you have as, I'm not an academic, I'm not a teacher. I know how to do my job, on whatever job that is, but do I know how to teach it? So a lot of my work at the moment is about just reinforcing those skills for people who teach, that have this enormous, like, beautiful wealth of experience of working in the industry, and just giving them a few tools to understand how they teach. And then via me doing that, I also get to reinforce my skills as well. Because actually, when you get given those tools about how to teach, then I think you realize that what you are doing is the right thing. It's just the affirmation of that. So still learning and still have things to learn, but definitely getting more comfortable with it.
I love your thought about whether the education system feeds the industry or the industry feeds the education system. I'm going to have to think about this for a while. But
I honestly hope that there's going to be more of the education feeding the system, because yes, there's so many practices we really need to change.
Yeah, but we need to get the educators who know what the issues are into the education system to teach it, right? Sure. So that's the cyclical thing. But I'm really going to stew on that, Jacqui. I'm going to be thinking about that. Sometimes people say something, and I just I'm going to be thinking about that for a week now. I like that you're still learning, and I think that is something that's because also as you're learning and the industry is changing, there's obviously still new things to keep, staying present in what's going on in the industry so that then can be wrapped into it. And I guess you would experience that as technology changes and processes changes, and even from a stage management perspective, 5 years ago, I never used Google Sheets, and now I use Google Sheets all the time, right? So how do you stay up with that, and how do you sort of share that with your students? Is it let's just keep growing together, or what's your approach?
Oh, such a great question. How do we stay current? It's one that's at the forefront of everything when we're designing programs, looking at programs, because when we were writing the undergraduate programs of where I currently work, we talked a lot about future-proofing. Not only how do you future-proof a course, but how do you future-proof a graduate's training? Because we can train somebody now and they can be absolutely industry ready when they graduate next year. But then how does their practice remain current? And I think it's about the approach and the ethos of what you teach. So, for example, what I call the ABCs of stage management, right? So that's the easy part, but it's actually teaching students how to be autonomous, how to be self-initiate, how to be proactive rather than reactive, as opposed to how to do the hard elements of the job. So if we train problem solvers, if we teach critical thinkers, then everything will always continue to change. We can't, the easiest analogy for me is if we're talking more in the technical education fields, because, okay, you teach a student one sound desk, and they go on tour, or they don't take the desk with them, or they go into a smaller venue and it's not that sound desk. Does that make them then more or less employable, or do you give them the skills that we're never going to have the capacities to teach them every sound desk or lighting board or whatever it may be? But if you give them the skills, they can learn it, they can figure out how to teach themselves, they can find out the answers to the questions. I remember going on a tour of a school that I was looking at for my daughter, and I kept this with me, and the teacher taking the tour said, we don't give the students the information. We teach the students how to find out the information. And I was like, that's it, right? That's the most important life skill, because there's no way we can give them all the information. So I think that's how you keep it current, is that you give them the tools that graduates can find out what's current and how to practice what's going on at that moment, or not even going on at the moment, but actually make them give them the tools that they can be the ones that are making the tomorrow's technology, or the way to do something, or the best practice to have.
And so eventually all this, this seems to has this process, and you seem to have started a while back when you started doing all this 25 productions a year, which I think is crazy. And then it's been carrying on, and then you've been sharpening this process, I guess, now that you're in Sharjah.
Yeah, I guess so. My sort of career has switched between teaching, and then I've gone back into industry, and then I've gone back into teaching. So just before I moved to Sharjah for this opportunity, I was having the time of my life. I was probably doing the best professional work I'd ever done. And I mean that not as in, what was getting the best reviews or the biggest praise, but I was enjoying it the most. So I discovered that actually the work I like to make, and I guess I'm theatre through and through, but the work I like to make is site specific, because that's where, for me as a stage manager, I get the most challenges to solve. Because you make a show in a theatre, you have 4 walls, you put it on the stage, you might have the same sort of company challenges or dynamics or financial or scheduling. Those, if the text change or the director changes, you'll see a pattern of themes and challenges that come up. But for site specific, for me, you get to a place where you're not only thinking about how the storytelling functions in a stage manager capacity, but also how the site functions. So I remember we did a production for, it was the 1418 now centenary that the UK government had funded. And it was a production called Mammoths, which is about the Battle of Mammoths that had happened in the First World War. Excuse me, I'm just going to grab a drop of water. And it was over a huge site, acres of farmland. This farmer, it was a production for National Theatre Wales, in the middle of Wales, had crazily agreed to loan us his farm for 6 weeks. We recreated trenches, we had French cafes, we had no man's land. It was, and then we had to battle with actors who were doing, full authentic World War I military uniforms in Welsh rain, and you had 2 shows a day. So where could they get dry, shower, etc.? But the sense of teamwork on those types of productions, for me, I think, is what really makes something special. So I was doing that, and I felt like I had this whole sort of bag of new ideas and tools about what stage management was and how I wanted to teach it, when this opportunity came up where the emirate I'm in now, Sharjah, for those who don't know, it's the 3rd largest emirate in the UAE. So Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and then Sharjah. And Sharjah's known as the cultural emirate. A few years ago, it was the Islamic cultural capital of the world. Hugely passionate and driven about education, publishing, arts and theatre. And they recognised His Highness Sheikh Kazemi, whose vision was to create this academy, that a lot of the skill set that was working in the country was flying in. It was flown in, and that was my experience of it as well. Lots of friends and colleagues who would come in, doing a National Day event, leave, and there was no grown talent within the UAE. So in 2018, I came over to visit in the April. I looked at the site where Sharjah Performing Arts Academy is now based. It was a building site full of breeze blocks. The pit for the main theatre was being sort of dug out, and Peter Barlow, who's our executive director, was recruiting for 3 program leaders: one for production arts, one for acting, and one for musical theatre. So we came and we talked and what the plan was, and I was just like, oh, what better opportunity to take all of the skills or knowledge that I'd gained in the different academies, whether it was London-based or more regional, and that professional, and create something that was responsive to the environment that we're placed in, or I was placed in right now. So my family were very understanding and were really supportive, and we all got on the plane, and we moved out here in September 2018. The building was finished February 2019. We got our accreditation from the Ministry of Education, and we opened our doors to students in September 2019.
Wow, that's amazing. So you were there from the very beginning. And like, what was the cultural shift for you personally to move to the Middle East and then work with people that were, you know, most of your work was done in, I guess, around the UK and perhaps in Europe, but not and even in Asia, but not necessarily in the Middle East. Was there a lot of learning to be had in that process for you?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So I think I spent that first year just going out, just learning, just meeting people, just talking, and that was absolutely invaluable. And I was fortunate in that first year that we didn't have students, so I was in the position that we were program writing, gaining the license as a higher education institution, so I could go out and have these conversations. So within that, I got the opportunity to meet, and there's this beautiful Arabic theatre culture and practice and tradition, attend some of the most amazing festivals. I think there's the festival scene here for theatre, and when I say here, I mean across that MENA region, is vast. Like, it's one of the biggest festival scenes that I know of. Like, every other week, you've got the DCAF festival in Cairo for experimental theatre. You have the Arabic Theatre Festival. I'm looking forward next month. We have the Desert Theatre Festival where we get 5 countries, and we literally go into the desert and we watch a different country's play every night. And, you know, there's camels walking past through the dunes in the background. Plus, you know, the Architecture Biennale opens next week. We've got the Book Publishing Festival on. So it was a real eye-opener and education for me. And then because we had a really big recruitment drive for faculty, and because our faculty is so internationally diverse, and because our student body is as well, we have just over 200 students in the building now, and I think we average about 36 nations across those just over 200 students. So, and the faculty added into that mix then as well, which come from all across the globe, it really enabled us to design a curriculum that was truly international. And there's lots of conversations in different academies and conservatoires about how you have that intersectional, that culturally rich, open curriculum, but it's sort of daily happening in front of my eyes with everyone just bringing their own experience. And that's also enabled by, we have a fantastic, we're very fortunate to have a brilliant scholarship program, which was a major factor for me coming here, when I could see not only the financial investment, but also the emotional and the intellectual investment of such an academy, because we have students from across that MENA region. If they interview or audition successfully, they receive full scholarship, which allows, we have students from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Syria, Palestine, Saudi, UAE, and many others in the mix. And that makes, I think, a really unique learning environment. So it's been a learning journey, and one that I'm still discovering stuff. But I think maybe what the expected cultural differences weren't there, I think. And it was a real sort of rich environment to teach theatre because there's so much happening.
Amazing. And now a note from our sponsor. The Theatre Art Life podcast is proud to be sponsored by ClearCom. ClearCom is the leader in voice communications for theatre and the performing arts. Call your cues with the simplicity and elegance of ClearCom Intercom solutions. You can find them at clearcom.com. Go check them out.
And now you're adding into the mix the world stage design in Sharjah.
Yeah, I know. Like we didn't have enough to do.
What? Tell us what the world stage design is. I don't even know what this is.
So OISTAT, which is the International Organization of Theatre Designers and Technicians, have this quadrennial event, World Stage Design. It was in Calgary last year. It's been in Taipei. It's been in Cardiff. So that would be my sort of first interaction of it, was when it was in the city I was currently living and working in. And they do various different commissions of theatre architecture commissions, sound commissions, lighting commissions, costume commissions. But every 4 years, they put out to tender the opportunity to host and organise world stage design. So there's 4 parts. The main, or one of the parts being this beautiful exhibition of the last 4 years' work of scenic scenographers, designers who submit they have to be realised designs. Right. And then there's a jury that select the top X amount. And there's the Theatre Architecture Prize, there's a Technical Innovation Prize. So it's a real sort of international coming together. So the tender for 2025 went out, and it's never been held in this region. And going back to what I've just said about the sort of the richness of provision here, and the amount of skill set in the country, like in that sort of, in terms of people working here doing their craft, it's pretty phenomenal. We were like, why don't we host it here? Why don't we see if this is a real opportunity? So we put our bid together. We put it to the OISTAT Executive Committee, and they decided it was the right time for us to do it. So we're in the midst of planning for that, which is really exciting.
And how many people would people come to Sharjah particularly? Like, where is it going to be held, and what does that look like when it happens?
It'll be in Sharjah, and then it'll be in the wider UAE. So a lot of the activity, there's performances, workshops, masterclasses, talks. Some of it will be in Sharjah Performing Arts Academy. Some of it will be in the heart of Sharjah, where we have this beautiful area that has Sharjah National Theatre, Sharjah Theatre Institute, Sharjah Art Foundation. There's the other side of Sharjah. Random fact for you here, Sharjah is the only emirate that covers both coasts in the UAE. So towards the other side of the Khor Fakkan, we've got the beautiful amphitheatre, which will be hopefully hosting some events in. And then we're also having conversations with partners nationally about what other events will take place across Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to do that and still continue with all the curriculum of the Sharjah Academy. It must be a lot on your plate right now, Jacqui.
Well, yeah. So actually, coming this December, I'll be taking a side step. So I'll be stepping away from the delivery. I'm in my post at Sharjah Performing Arts Academy, and I'm going to be going back to, it's that flip back to industry. So I'll be focusing on world stage design and also doing some other freelance projects as well. So it'll give me a little bit more time to concentrate on world stage also.
Amazing. What would you say is the most challenging project that you've undertaken? Because you seem to have taken all of this within your stride pretty well, but has there been projects that have really been a big step for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think a lot of projects, when you're in it in the moment, that's the project that gives you the problems, right? You think, how am I going to do this? And then you always navigate away. What's been my most challenging? This is certainly, do you know what? This has had its challenges, but because of the support and the team and the conversation around it, actually, it hasn't been a difficult challenge, or there hasn't been and there's always been a way to navigate it or to find compromise in it. I think there was one particular, I've just jumped back to a show. It was the 10-year anniversary of the Wales Millennium Centre,
Right.
which it was a big outdoor event. And for anyone who knows that particular venue, just outside there's like what they call the basin. And it was decided, it was a co-production with a company called Walk the Plank, and they specialize in outdoor arts. So there were lots of sort of really large scale puppets, lots of fire, building, climbing, aerialists on the roof, ladders that were just, you're talking of like 30-meter ladders that would just magically appear for somebody to climb up, telehandlers. I think we had a cast of about 300, 400 with community performers as well. And a part of the performance, the week prior to this event, around the coast of Wales, there was a team of rowers who were rowing the coast of Wales, and magically at the right time would row into the bay to be greeted by this mythical Welsh character from the Mabinogion, which is a folk story in Wales.
Wow.
And we had a team. There was about 15 stage managers on that project. We had the most incredible production manager, a woman called Sarah Cole, who I have all admiration for in her work. And we talked through possibilities, eventualities. We had stilt walkers. The audience capacity was 12,000, but it was just a sort of show up and watch event. And I remember on the day thinking, okay, if this doesn't happen, what are the consequences? And we had all of our contingencies and our backups and whatever, but it all went fine. It all happened on the night, as they say.
It sounds like so much fun, though.
It was, do you know what? It was one of the most stressful, but one of my best productions that I've worked on. Stays with you, right? Those ones that cause you the most, stay in your brain.
I always say the best projects are the ones that are most hard won, right? Like if you get it across the line and you've made it, there's a satisfaction even when nobody else knows, but you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's the duck effect, right? We talk loads about the duck effect, or the swan effect. That there's loads of bird analogies that my friends and I use in stage management. Like you got the sort of the paddling frantically beneath the water and the gliding along. And there's another colleague, you probably know, Gail Palin, and she does this great owl analogy. Like a good stage manager is the owl that you might be having a conversation here, but you can do your owl sort of 360 and know what's going on behind you. So I always like the bird analogies.
That's awesome. I love that. We always finish our podcasts, Jacqui, with a couple of questions. So I want to ask you, what is your most favorite thing about your job or the industry? My most favorite thing, this may sound a little cliche because I'm sure we hear this from lots of people, but it's the people you work with, right? Because
that team or that dynamic like happens in that one moment. I was saying this to a group of students this week. I was saying, like, what's special about a group, and whether that's a production team or a company or a group of students making their first project, is that coming together of those people in that time with that piece of script or devised work or whatever it may be only happens once, and that's what's truly unique. And like that, the friendships or the disagreements or the beautiful moments of collaboration only happen in that one sort of moment in time. And I think it's those moments of teams coming together that I really enjoy in my work.
That's awesome. It's funny because that is something that's quite a regular contribution from people from all sides of the stage or backstage and things like that. And I've thought about this the other day. I was thinking I need to like do this sort of test case where I ask another industry the same question, because I want to know, like, if it's just us that enjoys working with each other, or is it the other industry? Like, I need to go into I don't know, it's like accounting or banking. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to have some comparison model. I need to get some data. What do you think, Ella?
Completely right. Because like, can you imagine? Like, have you ever heard of anyone who works in theatre, whether it's on or off stage, that doesn't like, that wants to be in their own company? Because like you don't do it. And that whole idea of collaboration, which I think is a fascinating word. That's one of my most favorite words in theatre, because it's a word that gets super misused and misunderstood, and a word that gets should be used with more understanding or more sort of commitment. Like, because you get lots of people saying, "Oh, let's collaborate. I want to do a collaboration," and what quite often that sort of interprets to is, "Can you do this for me?" or "Can you provide that?" Right? And it's kind of that true collaboration. Like, I read somewhere it was in it was a book about production collaboration, and it was like, "I'll bring red, you bring blue, let's make purple." And I was like, that's what it is, right?
That's exactly what it is. Like you said, it's not you bringing some stuff that I need, because But it's interesting because I also think the other unique situation is the people that are collaborating around the table in the theatre environment are very different people, right? There's a stage manager who's different from a lighting designer, different to a sound person, different to an actor, different to an artistic director. And when you think about that, we all work in the one industry, but we're all very different mindsets. We're very different wiring. We're very different. And there's a lot of respect between, you can get on stage and bang out that musical song. I can't do that, but I can go, I can do this and I can play this part. So it forces collaboration, because you can't do it as in a silo, right? Like, if we were just stage managers, what would we be doing? There'd be nothing to stage manage if there was not a team around, right? So, and I wonder that, again, if we were to sort of apply that to another, say, the banking industry, well, they're all somehow involved in banking, right? They're not necessarily coming from a completely different perspective, like a lighting designer and a milliner, right? Like, so it's fascinating to me.
It's so true.
You got me thinking on whether it is a little bit the fact that, like what you said, Anna, that it's a team effort. And I wonder if like the people that would relate a little bit more to us would be like sports player that work in teams, or maybe scientists that really need the input from the other to build their final product. More so that maybe a group of lawyers, but who knows?
Yeah. We do this, it just reminded me, we do this amazing project. It's my favorite point of the year with the students. The BA programs at Sharjah Performing Arts Academy are 4 years. And the first year, no matter what program you're enrolled onto, you all do exactly the same path study. So all the production art students will do some voice classes, some dance classes, all of the acting students. I remember saying to somebody like that, well, the acting students do their mortise and tenon in the workshop. And everyone was like, what? And I was like, no, it'll be fine. We'll take it slowly. We'll make sure. But the level of understanding and appreciation, just what you were talking about, Anna, that they get from that is absolutely fantastic. And they do this project, they do a musical theatre sharing. And it's when I see the production art students and the sort of the diehard, I'm going to be a DSM or show caller students and like belting out a sort of a musical theatre number with so much passion.
I love it.
And I like have this sort of like, oh my gosh, so much pride. And then they come off and they go, yeah, but I'm never doing that again. But they appreciate it and they understand that the sort of the preparation and the commitment that performer has to go through to do it. In the moment, they don't always get it, but like, it's interesting. 6 months, 12 months down the line, they're like, oh, I get now why we did that. I'm like, yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Although I'd have to say, I don't know if anyone would want me to be belting out of tune because I can't sing, but I'd probably have fun doing it. And if you could change one thing about the job or your industry, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, just the one, right?
Narrow it down.
Oh, it ties in, right? It ties in with the first answer. It ties in to team. It ties into collaboration. So on that note, I'm going to say if I could get rid of one thing, I'd get rid of, and I think maybe we've all had experience of this somewhere in our careers, but I'd get rid of the egos. Because I'm sure we've all had moments with it where the intention of whatever individual in whatever department brings their own, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what's best for me in this production. And then that absolutely just diminishes the work of everyone else. And it could be in a comment, it could be in a really sort of quick moment. So I think if we could get rid of that somehow, unfortunately they're fewer rather than more, but it would make a huge difference to all of the work and all of the people's emotions and attachment to working with shows. I think it would help a lot.
I love that. And we haven't had that response, have we, Anna?
Not quite like that. But a few days ago, I was doing this interview, and the person was saying how challenging it is to work with other people. And then I asked, what's your favorite thing about the job? And she said the people. So I think there's this conundrum of we like working with each other, but we're also complicated people, or complex, let's say.
Yeah.
Complex individuals.
And what the real driver is, right? Like, there's always going to be drivers of, well, we work to eat, to sleep, to live. Like, those are like the sort of, primary functions. But if I'm doing a show, then I want to do the show because I want it to be the best show it can be, and I want it to be the best process it can be, and the best journey, with nobody's well-being put at stake for that. But when people bring their own, this is the way I always do it, or this is what I want to do, it's like, oh, okay, so let's look at the bigger picture. I think that's what I want to get back to.
Wow, that's amazing.
Production manager in you.
Yeah, the production manager in you. Okay. Jacqui, I want to ask, because you're in the UAE, do you have a person that would be a great podcast guest for us from that area? Because we try to dabble in the UAE, but we'd like some more guests from that area.
Or maybe the broader MENA region.
Yeah. What sort of, do you want more sort of performer or backstage or both or anyone or producer?
We're open. Anyone in live entertainment.
Open.
Interesting people.
Interesting people with a story to tell.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure. Leave it with me, and I'll have at least sort of 4 or 5 names I can put. I'll send them over to you, and then
that would be lovely. And you also mentioned
wonderful.
So your production manager on that project with the rowing. Was it Sarah Cole?
Yes.
Would she be a good guess?
Oh my gosh, she's awesome. So Sarah works out of South Wales. She has her own company, Sarah Co. But she specialises in music festivals and theatre. But she works amazingly because I love her when I work with her, because her main thing is, she says, I'll put together the right team and the rest is done. So she's really good at putting the right team together.
Oh, I want to talk about that. Let's get Sarah on this podcast too. What do you reckon, Anna?
She's brilliant.
Yeah, no, let's put together the right team. How many times we've talked about how hard it is to put together the right team and just have the right player.
That's it. Absolutely. Jacqui, thank you so much for spending time with us on the Theatre Art Life podcast. It was such a pleasure to talk to you about your work and your life at Sharjah.
Thanks both. It's been great to talk to you.
Theatre Art Life is a global media site for entertainment. Memberships start at only $38 per year. You can have unlimited access to our daily published articles, including entertainment news and the writings of active industry professionals, ensuring that you are always up to date on the global happenings in the world of entertainment. Become a part of the international entertainment community and join us now at www.theatreartlife.com.